Well, I see the time as noon, so good morning, CEMA members. On behalf of the CEMA Executive Board and the CEMA Professional Development Committee, I would like to welcome you to our 2022 Fall Event web series, Roundtable with Supervisor Susan Ellenberg. I'm Lawrence Michael Ciaris, and I'm so honored to be your elected CEMA Executive Board Vice President, and I'm also Chair of the CEMA Professional Development Committee. Now, before we introduce our keynote speaker, I would first like to take a few moments to introduce my co-hosts. First, you know them as tireless advocates for our members, our hardworking business reps, Zeb Feldman, Adam Cole, Lauren Sue, and Jonathan Brown. If you'd like to say hello, everybody.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Zeb Feldman, Senior OE3 Business Rep, and welcome to you all. Adam?
Yeah, Adam Cole, another one of your CEMA OE3 Business Reps. Thanks for being here. Lawrence?
Lawrence Sue, CEMA OE3 Business Agent. Jonathan?
Good afternoon, everybody. The newest member to CEMA, and thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Thank you, everyone. So now I'd like to introduce members of the CEMA Executive Board. If you could please introduce yourself when I call upon you. Dolores Morales.
Dolores Morales, proud to serve as your CEMA President.
Carla Collins.
Hi there, I'm Carla Collins, very proud to be your Senior Vice President.
I don't see Jim Piazza, our Treasurer. I'll go on to Donna Menzimer.
Hi, Donna Menzimer at Roads and Airports, CEMA Secretary, and a voting member in your district.
Thank you. Mary Beth Rogers.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mary Beth Rogers. I'm a management analyst out at Social Services Agency, and I'm a member at large on the CEMA Executive Board. Nice to see everybody here today.
Thank you. Robin Rivas Romano.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Robin Rivas Romano. I also work at Social Services, and I am also a member at large on the CEMA board.
Thank you. Jesse Castaneda, I don't see, nor do I see Laura Romero. So we're sorry to miss them, but they are also members at large. Next, I'd like to introduce members of the CEMA Professional Development Committee, which includes myself as chair, Dolores, Donna, and Robin, whom you've already met. But also we have the following members: Teresa Chigoya, Vihar Patel, and Will Quintero. Now, if you haven't already done so for these sessions, would you kindly please make sure to log in with your full name so that we can respond promptly to you if you have any questions. You can also rename yourself on your picture or video if you'd like. Please be advised that questions submitted by unknown users will not be considered. And in consideration of our speakers, kindly please make sure to keep yourself on mute and maybe turn off your video until while they're speaking. So next, I'd like to call in our senior business rep, Zeb Feldman, to introduce our speaker for today. Zeb?
Thank you so much, Lawrence Michael, and welcome to everybody. I know you all have pressing concerns keeping the county running, and we're very happy that you're taking a few moments out of your day to spend here with us and with Supervisor Ellenberg. Supervisor Ellenberg joins us today with one of her staff members. I believe Steve Klein is on the call. If you want to just say hi, Steve.
Good afternoon. And we have another staff member also, Michael Norris.
Okay, and if he's on the call, please say hi.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michael Norris. And Supervisor Ellenberg, Supervisor Susan Ellenberg, many of you may recollect her election 2 cycles ago, and CEMA ultimately ended up backing Supervisor Ellenberg. And we've had, I would describe it, perhaps the supervisor would describe it differently, a quite prosperous relationship with Supervisor Ellenberg. She was very instrumental in the securing of our initial contract. And in my experience has always had an open door policy, even through COVID, which I know presented communication challenges to us all. And there are many policy decisions as well as budgetary priorities that we've worked with Supervisor Ellenberg on. And in fact, today, we're hoping to hear a little bit about some of her priorities, as well as areas where we might be able to better partner in the future. So with that, Supervisor Ellenberg, I'll turn the floor over to you with CEMA's thanks for sharing this event with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me to speak with your membership. And Lawrence, if you don't mind if I contradict your recommendation, I'm delighted for any of you who want to keep your cameras on. It's actually lovely to get to talk to faces as opposed to black screens, but please do whatever makes you most comfortable.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Let me begin by offering some context and an initial set of visions. You just met Michael Norris, my comms director. He is going to be placing relevant links in the chat when we arrive at topics that may need further information or to provide additional resources when we get to Q&A at the end. So I'm going to just start by providing an answer to a question that I got frequently more than 4 years ago, but still comes up today. Why did I choose to run for public office? And the most succinct way to say that is that I chose this because I wanted more for the children of Santa Clara County. I wanted and still want a place that not only values, but actually invests in children. I want our county to be the best place in the state for children and families to live and grow and thrive. So once I got into office, I began to take inventory of the tools that were available to me to realize this vision, and quickly realized that everything government does or doesn't do for our children would require the same 5 tactics in order to address and implement: leadership, partnerships, transparency, accountability, and resources. So I identified a vision statement, which is this: children thriving in a community where they have at least one constant and unconditionally supportive adult in their lives, whether it's parents, grandparents, foster parents, siblings, etc., as well as access to stable housing in safe and clean neighborhoods, sufficient daily nutrition, high quality healthcare, including developmental, physical, and mental, quality education, beginning with accessible and affordable preschool, and open spaces for them to run and play and grow. So with this vision in hand, I got to work. Through my office, I've laid a critical foundation with the creation of the first of its kind for our county, the children's budget, to ensure that there's transparency and accountability for what we're investing in, what the gaps are, and how we plan to grow investments for the benefit of children, and in turn, their families, employers, and local economy in our county. Also led with Supervisor Chavez on the establishment of a new office, the Office of Children and Families Policy, to put this children's budget into context so that we could coordinate and align work throughout the county and its departments to ensure that everything we do is directly or collaterally in pursuit of this vision. An understanding, of course, that children do not exist in a bubble or alone. I look to the supports they need to ensure that we are shoring up all of the systems of care that help us reach these goals. I've worked to bring much needed investment in our mental health and substance use disorder supports to ensure both children and adults will receive help precisely when they need it. My work to create and fund mental health resources on the campuses of our schools for all children is underway and will continue and expand as resources are made available. In partnership with Supervisor Lee, I laid some additional foundations earlier this year with the declaration of mental health and substance use disorders as a public health crisis to raise broader awareness of the issues and to attract and grow resources, including much needed facilities, as well as the workforce to deliver these important services. Mental health obviously has a direct impact on a person's ability to thrive and their ability to provide for their families. It allows for adults to function both inside and outside the home, making it possible for them to be self-sufficient and provide for all those who depend on them. So investments here will benefit all of us and have to continue to be made until the gaps are filled. The last piece of context that I want to offer is the work that I've embarked on this year around alternatives to incarceration. And let me just be clear from the outset here, alternatives does not mean an absence of accountability for harm. It means searching for more effective means of holding people accountable and securing justice for victims that actually builds a safer and more just community and reduces recidivism and strengthens all of us. When somebody becomes involved in our justice system, it isn't only they who are impacted, it's their families, their children, and truly our community at large. And alternatives to incarceration aren't new. In fact, we already have many examples to point to, beginning with early investments to support youth, decisions by the courts and district attorneys to divert people from jail between the time of their arrest and the conclusion of their cases, and expanding access to mental health and substance use disorder treatments. But absolutely more has to be done to keep people, families whole before, during, and after their engagement with the justice system. And as I thought about government's role in this work, I recognize that a blind spot is sometimes not informing the work with the voices of individuals with lived experiences as either perpetrators or victims of harm, as well as practical implications for our policies. So this led me to the creation of 3 working groups made up of stakeholders who can bring these perspectives to the table to inform the solutions. They'll be meeting over the next 6 or 7 months to create a series of, or a number of recommendations that our justice system can incorporate to better serve our community. The legislative priorities that I put forward and the values both in the district and the county are only as strong and credible as are prioritized in our budget. And I consider the budget vote to be one of the most important votes that I take every year. And I absolutely feel the weight of that decision and whose lives may be helped by what we choose to fund and who may be harmed by what we do not choose to fund. For the most recent budget year, I was pleased with the board's decision to invest more discretionary dollars to expand mental health and substance use disorder services, including about 1.8 million for 20 detox beds that are expected to serve an additional 700 to 800 individuals per year, $1 million for pre-construction investigation of additional mental health facilities, and $3.5 million for housing people with mental illness. It's a drop, truly. These investments lay a foundation for ongoing critical expansion, which this and every other California county must do now that Governor Newsom's Care Court legislation has been signed into law. I also successfully advocated for a $5 million investment to expand our early childhood workforce, $10 million for the wellness centers in schools, $10 million in grants to small locally owned businesses that were hit hardest by the pandemic. And over the last 3 years, I've been building on cumulative advances in budget transparency, which has added, among other things, comprehensive debt information and bond rating details, the base budget of each department, and additional details on departmental programs. It was nice to see that these cumulative advances in transparency resulted in our county for the first time receiving the award of Outstanding Budget Presentation in 2021. But the work to make our budget process less opaque, I would say, remains ongoing. And as I prepare to begin my second term in January, I see really big things for our county. And I want to build on the foundations that were laid, again, leveraging those same 5 tools that I mentioned earlier: leadership, partnership, transparency, accountability, and resources. I want us to look at our organization as a whole and all the connection points where our residents are falling through gaps. And I want to collectively solve for them. I want to make it easier for residents to get the help they need when and where they need it, and in their own languages. I want us to dig deeper beyond the Band-Aids to the root causes to truly solve for the challenges that impede our residents' ability to thrive. And I want our budget to reflect our priorities to better serve our communities. And because we know that resources are finite, I need us to work together to be strategic around our investments to ensure the results will have positive ripple effects. And to all of you, the CEMA members, I really want to thank you for your work on behalf of county residents. I suspect that being the middle layer puts a lot of stress on you as you manage both up and down and try to do your very best work every day. As Zeb recognized, and thank you for that, I've been really grateful for the open dialogue we began nearly 4 years ago. And I've appreciated your insight on a wide range of issues. And I think as a policymaker, and a budget approver, I'm in a position to make better decisions when I've considered all available perspectives and received candid feedback regarding both deliberate and unintended consequences of any given proposal. I hope that you have found me to be a good listener and that you've seen growth in my work as a result of being in dialogue with you. I've said it before, but I will say it again. County employees are the boards and administration's partners in the work that we do. You deserve to be treated with respect, valued for your contributions, whether through your actual work or around recommendations for improvements in processes, and recognized as community members as well as employees. And a shout out to Donna. I am sure you're not the only D4 resident on the call, but thank you for noting that. Clearly, we have the same goals regarding service to the community, but we also do our work through slightly different lenses. Your job is to advocate for your membership, ensure that every employee is treated fairly, and works to secure the best wages and benefits you can. My job is also to ensure that every employee is treated fairly and that the county is an employer of choice. My job also involves balancing the very legitimate demands of our labor partners with the programs, services, and resources we provide to the public, which again includes, I suspect, nearly all of you. It is crazy expensive to live in this valley, and your jobs are really hard. Please know that these facts are always top of mind for me as I fulfill my fiscal responsibilities to steward a lot of public dollars to do the most good for the most people every day. There are a couple of other things I wanted to chat about in a little bit more detail, particularly my thinking around the jail and mental health facilities, and also a little bit more explanation around care court, but I want to make sure I'm hitting the things that you are most interested in. So why don't we pivot to questions? And if those questions come up, I'm happy to talk about them. And if there are other issues that are more pressing for you, glad to talk about that as well. Looking forward to conversation.
Beautiful. Thank you, Supervisor Ellenberg. And Lawrence Michael, I believe you wanted members, did you want members to be able to unmute and ask questions, or did you want them to place their questions in chat?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Either way, if they're comfortable asking that in person, they can raise their hand and we can call on them. But if they rather just put it in chat, then they certainly can, and then you can just read the question for the supervisor. But right. I'll leave that to the members' preference.
Wonderful. And members, here I'll put my, I'll put in chat. You can text me directly. If you wish. Sometimes people are a little bit shy, especially if they have sensitive questions. I don't think we'll end up in that circumstance here, Supervisor. But I did have 2 questions come in actually before Lawrence Michael this happened. So let me go back to those. They're in my notes here. The first was, do you see an expansion in spending on behavioral health? So this is a very specific question to the Behavioral Health Department.
There sure better be. Yes. I mean, our county unanimously, the Board of Supervisors declared a public health crisis in mental health and substance use disorders. The purpose of starting with that declaration of public health crisis was specifically to alert administration to the fact that this is a priority of all 5 supervisors and that we have to invest in it. And when we look at the challenges of substance use disorders, of mental illness, of the criminal legal system, and of homelessness, we will make the most lasting, sustainable advances if we are focusing our investments absolutely on housing. And I think the Measure A dollars are doing a good job there. But MHSA, county, state, whatever dollars are available to build out a full continuum of care. We need there, as and any of you who work in that system know, there are bottlenecks everywhere. People who are taken by law enforcement to EPS may be briefly stabilized, but are released back into the community, often simply because there's no space for them at BAP. And people in BAP are remaining there longer frankly, the longer than the coverage, the medical coverage is there, because they can't go to a step-down facility. People are languishing in IMDs because there's no space at a crisis residential, and board and care homes are closing at a terrifying clip because, again, related to the cost of housing, they can get a lot more money selling their properties than trying to get meager reimbursement for having clients. So we need massive investment, in my view, in facilities and in workforce development. We have these MHSA dollars sitting around, and often the county is, criticized for having this money that we're not spending. That money is just for programs. We can't use it for facilities or for workforce, so we can't implement all of the programs. And now the care court tie-in here is that more people are going to be referred to services. Counties are going to be financially penalized for not complying with the care court recommendations. But if judges are directing people to services and we don't have them and we don't have the housing, we're not going to be solving any problems. And if we don't solve the challenges of the intersection of challenges of homelessness and mental illness and substance use disorders and the dysfunction of our custodial system, we will make no measurable improvements. So what's interesting, I know it's a really long answer, but it's obviously a piece that's really important to me. The board has indicated its unanimous support for this in multiple votes. We are going to have a priority session, capital improvements prioritization workshop or meeting on October 4th. A place where I would be so grateful for your support is to emphasize the need to build out this full continuum of care with absolute priority prioritization. And the big project that's on there is the jail, which Dr. Smith did indicate is going back to the drawing board, essentially. Our jails are in very shoddy condition. Nobody will deny that, but they exist. There are 3 of them. There is an absolute dearth of mental health facilities at so many levels. That's where we have to start. That's where we have to relieve the pressure. So your support there, and then your support ongoing with helping us to build the workforce would be absolutely critical and much, much welcome. I'll try to make my other answer shorter, but I'm very fired up about this.
No, absolutely. And we appreciate the answer. I don't expect you to be following in chat, but just so you know, there are 4 questions that have come in. I've posted them in chat. I'm going to read the first one.
Can you read them? Yeah, thanks. I'm not following.
Okay, I'm going to read the first one for everybody. And also members who texted me, that please feel free to unmute and just throw your hand up if you want to ask the question. It doesn't have to be me. So the first one, as an employer, what was the biggest lesson learned from the pandemic?
That when children are not taken care of, the entire economy shuts down. Without schools and without childcare, tens of thousands of essential employees could not get to work. And I don't want people to forget that as we open back up, building toward access, universal access to childcare is way up high on my list. And if you're interested in hearing specifically about childcare, I'm happy to talk more about that. But that's the biggest lesson.
And we will remember the childcare that was offered through the county, right? That did help out in some of those troubled times.
Yeah.
Okay, the next was, and feel free to unmute or put your hand up if anyone wants to ask questions themselves. Do you or the county plan to address the increasing cost of living with relief to CEMA members and or other employees?
So that's literally the heart of the contract negotiations, as I said in my comments at the top, that I am acutely aware of how expensive it is to live here. I'm aware of the workforce shortage across many, many sectors. I know that the county needs to be an employer of choice. I think there are some places and some fields and roles where we're never going to compete with the private sector, where we just can't. And I think where another place for us to work really well together is to think both about wages, but also benefits, support, services. What else can we do in the cases where we can't necessarily get you to, to the numbers that you all want? What are other aspects of the work that would encourage you to stay here and entice more people to come and work here? It's really hard.
Got it. Thank you. And this one, I'm going to broaden it a little bit, but the question that was asked was specific. It says, hiring licensed and pre-licensed clinicians, MSWs or MFTs, is incredibly challenging. That's Master Social Work and Marriage Family Therapist, for those that members that may not know. We have a lot of acronyms here. Is incredibly challenging, and the county misses out on to other providers because it takes too long and we pay less than other providers. So while I appreciate that this member's question is very specific to these classifications, we've experienced as a union that this happens everywhere throughout the county. The length of time for recruitment for ESA, and then pay possibly being competitive, but possibly not in some areas.
Yeah, so let me talk about that from a few different perspectives. First of all, I have not made secret the fact that I think that our ESA works inexcusably slowly and in an overly cumbersome manner. I fully understand that the merit system is not super fast, and I think that it's obviously important that we are hiring through that system, but it does not have to be as complicated as it is. We cannot afford for it to take as long as it does. And I can tell you that that's probably one of the biggest sticking points and challenges with our county executive, who really is a fierce defender of ESA and seems to see something different than virtually every other department. So I hear you, and that is a real problem. The issue around, so the timing is one problem. Also, the rigidity around very traditional qualifications, I think, is a problem. I think that we need to incorporate, and this I imagine is something for that would be a meet and confer issue also, but thinking about how we make our job descriptions a little bit broader, a little bit more flexible, allow us to consider various types of lived and work experience without necessarily the particular degree or particular title that we seem so wedded to right now. I would like us to see more peer workers in the lighter end mental and behavioral health and substance use treatment. I would like us to really think creatively about who can competently do this job and separate ourselves a little bit from the traditional rigidity that's not serving us.
Thank you for that. There was a comment in reference to this, and I'm going to skip ahead, then I'll call on member Alma Duarte, who has her hand raised. A lot of applause with regards to that response. Some feedback as well that where pay is a challenge, enhanced telework is a big boon, especially to people. I'm going to throw this in at our level, where a lot of us are individual contributors, or much of our work lends itself to be done remotely. Obviously, if you're like a programmer or a medical coder or something like that, it's really an industry standard to work remotely. So I don't know if you want to address that. If you have any plans for an expansion of telework, especially for groups like CEMA.
I think we haven't even expanded yet as much as Supervisor Chavez directed in her referral regarding telework. So I think that's, we're still within the, I don't want to call it the authority, but we need to fully fully build out the opportunities that the board has already approved of. I think that telework is really a critical, I don't even want to talk about it as a benefit, because it's not a present. If you're doing your job well, and this is something that keeps you here, and the work product is produced, then I think we should be maximizing our use of telework. I think it's a little bit patronizing to presume that people can only do work in a specific building when they're overseen by some particular person. Obviously, there are plenty of advantages to working in a collective setting, and I understand that as well. So I think that it's just something that needs to continue to be talked about, negotiated, and maximized wherever possible.
Thank you. And Alma, if you could unmute, if you have your video up, please have that available as well.
Good afternoon. My name is Alma, and I work for DFCS, which is Department of Family and Children's Services. We're in the process of starting a critical incident stress management team, which deals with death and near death of children and other kind of really difficult issues that are happening at DFCS. And it's not even a CEMA issue, really. It's about the staff and the workers and the supervisors who are dealing with these like really kind of horrific and really impacting events, episodes, instances, whatever, And one of the things that we're talking about is about staff are being impacted emotionally, trauma-based, based on what's happening at work. And so they're having to take their own leave, whether it's their personal leave, whether it's their vacation or sick leave or what have you. They have to take their own leave, but it's really not about them. It's something that happened as a result of the work that we do. And one of the things that we talk about is like, well, that's something that has to come up in contracts. It's not something that we as a department, our deputy, our directors, or our executive team can work on. How do we resolve that? How do we bring that to attention? Because it's where it happens all the time at DFCS. So that's just my question.
Yeah, thanks for that, Alma. And I think that employee mental health is a topic that was not on anybody's radar prior to the pandemic. Not that the job stress didn't exist. It just wasn't something that we confronted at a systems level. And I think we've started to dip a toe there now. I think the sheriff's office, I actually don't remember if it's the deputy sheriffs or the correctional officers, had gone to, probation is implementing a trained peer support program to address mental health and stress issues, which the union members brought to Chief Garnett for implementation. And as far as I know, that didn't have to wait. I mean, I know it didn't have to wait for a new contract, but they worked on that. I think it's a really critical piece that we shouldn't have ignored before. And I would be interested in thinking about all kinds of models. There might be different models that work for different departments, depending on the nature of your work and whether this is a program that is best peer-led or externally led, or is designed to look like something entirely different, not necessarily a consultation therapeutic piece, but maybe there's quiet decompressing spaces, that are lovely and soothing that you can go to during the workday with an understanding from your supervisors or you're the managers, supervisors that this is to be respected as part of the day when needed. I don't know that it looks like more days not working with, because the reality is all of the services that we have to provide, but I would be totally open to departments making proposals, and working with your SEIU and other employees to see what they need, and again with administration to get what you need. I'm so glad. I just want to say I am so glad that everybody is talking about this now. Obviously doesn't mean that we've solved the issue, but mental health and stress and anxiety and depression are recognized with so much less stigma than they were before. And the fact that we can talk about it and figure out how to address it in the workplace makes me very happy.
Thank you for that response. And I suspect what we'll be doing is, in Alma, we're in some meet and confers with DFCS, not concerning this, so Supervisor Ellenberg, but there's a reorg going on there as well as some other changes. Yeah. What we may do is we'll work on that, some kind of a proposal to labor relations, and at some point it'll trickle its way up to you. Cool. So keep that in mind, Alma. We have several additional questions and comments about statements supporting your answer with regards to telework. Colleen Singh McGuire and Mary Young posted publicly on that. If either of you wanted to unmute, I think the supervisor spoke to her support of that, but if some of your questions were unanswered, please throw your hand up and I'll recognize in just a moment. The next question, let me see, sorry, I tabbed off of that screen. This comes from Joel, I believe, and is particular to ITCC. ITCC realignment broadened job descriptions, which is something you were discussing, yeah. Supervisor Ellenberg. But because of the delay, he says it takes several months to post, evaluate, interview, we lose potential employees to other tech sectors.
Yeah, for sure.
So while I appreciate ITCC preceded your entrance to the county, it was a massive study. I think you're aware of it. It involved a little bit more than 500 CEMA members, maybe 400, 300 other staff as well, including SEIU, and made a lot of substantial changes. So just one more thing for you to note, while we got some pretty good classifications out of that, you still have to have the infrastructure to support the hiring.
Right, right.
So, and it's probably not a topic for this kind of public venue, but if there's some way that we can support changes to enhance ESA, HR, LR support, we'd love to be involved in that, because it's something, especially as hiring folks and folks, sadly, that have to do some of the disciplinary counseling coaching, that support is so critical for us to fill positions, get the work done, and then make sure people have access to the resources they need to do their job well.
Yep.
Okay, next question. Is the board thinking about a revision of the merit system rules to make promoting and hiring easier?
So I can never speak for the board unless we voted on something publicly. I don't know what the board is thinking. I know that I have mentioned it publicly a number of times, particularly around non-traditional education and job title paths. We haven't taken it on formally as an agendized item. And frankly, I think that needs to be part of the overall ESA overhaul, re-envisioning, reworking, et cetera.
I wholeheartedly support that. Again, something that preceded you at the county, but you may have heard of. CEMA participated among all the unions. There wasn't a CEMA-led event with a modest revision of the merit system rules about, help me out, Lawrence, Michael, I think you participated on that, I think 9 years ago. So now I'm feeling old. And we made some changes that were modest, but helped a little bit. And we've been pushing to be part of that again, because the idea was that those were the changes that we could make that everyone could agree to. And then, of course, there are some changes that, not everyone is going to agree to, but perhaps might be necessary anyhow.
So let me ask you a procedural question. And if this answer takes too long, I'm happy to do it in a different, smaller meeting. But is that something each labor partner could negotiate on their own? Or is that something, I know we've got something like 30 partners, does everybody in the county have to agree on changes? Because some changes would not be job specific, but others of course would. So I'm just wondering from a procedural perspective where we would start.
It's a great question. And the answer is everybody has to be met and conferred with, but not everybody has to agree. So what the goal was in this meeting was, what are the changes that all bargaining units can agree to? Then you get into, then it's a much more lengthy, nuanced conversation of, well, what happens if we have majority support, but there's 5 unions that don't like it? Then does the county impose, and so on and so forth? But then it gets a little bit more tricky.
Okay, thanks, Ab.
Yep, absolutely. And all of us, we were meeting in the lower level conference room. Every union sent a delegate, probably 2 or 3 for the larger unions. And yeah, it was a big process, but we were all there, and there were a lot of ideas flying, which was really great.
Cool.
Okay, next question. Thank you for that. This may be, okay, let me just read this and then we'll see if some of it may have been answered. As a Sema County employee, 90% of the work that myself and colleagues perform can be done remotely. We often come into the office and spend our time communicating by email and virtual meetings with countywide collaborators sitting in other county buildings. Besides environmental and fiscal impact on operating facilities, how do you feel about additional telework? So another telework question, I think, calling out ably that sometimes you just come into work and then hunker down in front of your laptop anyway.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I think I did answer that I do support expansions where appropriate. I think that departments should have a lot of authority over how teleworking works for them. I think, countywide policies may not be as productive because departments work so differently. But again, reiterating that I have no reason to oppose maximizing telework.
Wonderful. Well, that's the list of questions that I had in chat. Is there anything that members wanted to release their mic? I guess I see Donna has her hand up. Please, Donna.
Gee, you skipped my question.
I am sorry, Donna.
That's okay. That's okay. My question is more, about budget, and I so appreciate your priorities. They do align with the way we live our life. However, I'm a little bit concerned on how do you take all of those priorities and also ensure that our members who have stepped up, who are exhausted, stressed out, constantly, pivoting to all the new changes and the pandemic, how do you ensure that they actually have all the resources they need to support our community and to be able to live and thrive in the community we support?
That is literally the heart of my job. I mean, most of I don't want to say percentages because I don't know offhand, but the majority of our budget is personnel, employees. And we need excellent professionals, literally at every job level to be able to carry out our responsibilities to the public. We also, as the 3rd largest employer in Santa Clara County, have an obligation to make sure that our employees are cared for and valued, and that we are doing, the very best we can. Acknowledging how incredibly hard it is to live here, where I think, so I've only been through one negotiation season here, and I would not say it was a delight. And part of the reason that it was so frustrating was that as a board member, I felt that I got very inadequate information. And it was very hard for me to judge what we could afford and what we couldn't afford. So I am going to insist this time, and truly Cindy and Dave asked for a lot of this that we didn't get, and I was brand new. I didn't know enough to ask or what to ask for, but much better information to know what can we do, where can we not go beyond because we will risk reducing services or resources to the public. We have to be able to have those conversations with, labor relations has to be able to have those conversations with you, and how do we hit that sweet spot where basically nobody is thrilled, because if somebody is thrilled, then somebody else is struggling. But we're at a place where we can not only carry out our core functions, but that we can do some of the really progressive, exciting, out-of-the-box work that Santa Clara County does, frankly, that other counties don't do. It's that stuff that we could say, well, we'll do a lot less of that and pay people more, and thinking about, the fact that you are county residents, and county residents that we hope never have to rely on county services. So, part of that is undermining our own efforts if we're not taking good care of you. But it is a challenge, and there will always be friction there. And I think our best hope for this next season is absolute transparency of information. We all need to be looking at the same data and hearing the same arguments and perspectives, and I will insist on that. And then that's the way to build trust. That's the way the system has integrity, and the acknowledgement that nobody will get everything they want.
So this is a really important comment, I think, for you to hear, Supervisor Ellenberg, that just came in. Yeah. I'm not going to attribute this to anybody for obvious reasons. This individual was told that they were actively told by their executive staff not to mention any issues or concerns when they did a presentation to the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah.
And so just so you are aware, that obviously is going to lead to some kind of a stifling in terms of the presentation that CEMA level staff are giving when they appear before the board.
So that's a problem. And that's a problem not just in this context, but broadly. Departments and department heads have instructions to not give us bad news and not tell us about problems. And that is ridiculous. And I've been working primarily, like, focusing first on behavioral health there. Do not be afraid to tell us where you can't do more, or where there are bottlenecks, or what the problems are, because we can't help solve them if everything is shiny. But I think there's a fear, and I've encountered this when I tried to talk to folks about strategic planning. There's a fear of strategic planning because, God forbid, what if we don't succeed on all of them? I think it's up to the board to convey a culture where it is okay, and in fact, it's important to let us know when things are not going well, so that we can help to break down those barriers, or if we can't break them down, at least understand what they are and why we may not be making as much success. I don't see this at all as an opportunity for criticism of, don't tell us what you're not doing well because you'll get in trouble. No, tell us where you're succeeding, where you're not, what's frustrating you, why you can't succeed, and how policymakers and budget directors may be able to help alleviate that, or say, well, that's not a priority problem, so we're going to put that aside because we're doing other things. Transparency is always better. Don't you tell your kids that too, those of you who have kids? It's better to tell the truth. Let's just lay it out and figure out how to move forward.
It's a signal to me as well, Supervisor Ellenberg, that CEMA can help with that role, where members can come to us and then we can transmit that information. So it's something that me and the reps may have to reach out a little bit more on to get some.
And let me just be clear that I'm talking about systemic issues and, program direction, as opposed to individual personnel challenges, which obviously has a different path. But if the work can't move forward, what are the barriers?
Absolutely. And that's where this member is coming from, right? Is they're saying, hey, I'm presenting, whatever, they have the mic and they're presenting at some, let's say Children's Family Seniors or something, and giving a presentation to the board, and they have some programmatic concerns. And it's like, don't talk about those, just present the number, or, whatever it is. And that happens.
So part of that is relationship building. And I would call out Carla, just because I think we've had a few tough conversations, and she's been able to be candid with me because we do have a relationship, and that helped me be a better advocate in public, frankly, because I had more of a backstory and understanding. So, you know, whether it's in public or through the reps, help me understand what's going on and help me understand when there's a disconnect between what we say we're doing and where the actual impact is or isn't happening. I'm always interested in impact rather than output.
Beautiful. We'll have to take a more active role in that. Before I call on you, Robin, which will be in just a moment, another member texted and said, it was requested that I got disciplined for my speaking out publicly. Please don't share this with me. So just so you know, it's like, it's a real thing.
Well, I don't want to get any of you in trouble. So I think what I have to do and what the board has to do is make clear to administration that this is fine with us. And I have to first figure out if it's fine with all of my colleagues, because again, can't speak for them. But I would say in the meantime, you know, have the CEMA reps talk to me.
Yep. And it's like anything we do in life has a benefit and a cost, right? So if we're presenting something to you as a professional and saying, here's our benefit, here's our cost, that should be reasonable. Right? Absolutely.
So
Robin, why don't
we help you get there where you think there's going to be a challenge. Let's pre-game it so that I can be helpful and we can get to a place where we can do that.
And I'm imagining that could even be ideal, right? As we might give the board offices a heads up, hey, ask a question about this, you know, and then it's like, okay, so maybe they were instructed not to include that in the report. And then it's like, well, what about this, right? Excuse me, Robin Rivas Romano, if you would.
Good afternoon. I'm very happy that you're here today. This has really been a great presentation. I want to go back to the sore thumb of ESA and staff there reviewing applications and telling people that they're not qualified for something when they're clearly qualified for it. But Jeff Smith supports that. So how are we supposed to get around that?
To be clear, Robin, so I make sure I understand, this is you're saying someone can do the job but doesn't meet the MQs?
No, someone can do the job and clearly meets the MQs, but somebody in ESA who doesn't really do the job or doesn't know the job says, oh, well, they don't qualify. So no, just forget it. And then let's move on. And this person has to keep going back and giving more information and giving more information. And the person who's never done that job, how can they be qualified to say that you do the job or not? But Jeff supports that.
Got it.
Yeah, well, it's always tough to talk about any individual circumstance because, you know, possibly there were.
Oh, it wasn't me.
No, I didn't mean yours, but I mean to talk about, you know, any single instance of somebody not being hired. Perhaps there were multiple people that, you know, I'm sure it's often the case that multiple people meet all of the requirements. I certainly would be distressed to hear that somebody who didn't meet them got a job, at least under the, you know, the merit system as it changes now. It's really hard to publicly answer that question right now, other than saying that I am determined to move us toward a radically revised ESA.
Thank you.
And to put a little bit, I think, on what frequently frustrates CEMA members, Supervisor Ellenberg, is when, for example, one of their employees is trying to promote and they made a list for the position last year, and then it's reviewed again the following year, and somehow with more experience, the person now doesn't qualify.
Yeah,
so I think
exactly, Adam. Exactly.
Maybe the legal term would be stare decisis, right? That ESA won't say someone's already looked at this, right? Clearly this person qualifies. Now with more experience, you don't qualify. It's those sorts of inconsistencies and lack of consistent practice that I think frequently frustrate hiring managers.
Yeah, well, Adam, we have strategized a little bit together about best ways to move big change here, and hopefully we'll see some movement soon.
So I have one last question, and then I'll hand it back to our professional development chair, or if you have any closing remarks, Supervisor Ellenberg. The question is, are there any specific events or opportunities you think CEMA can show its support of you in?
Yes, one sooner and one later.
Beautiful.
The sooner, and thank you for asking that. The sooner one is to help me make sure that the behavioral health continuum of care is prioritized in the capital improvements priority section. We should not be building anything carceral until we have built out a system that alleviates the bottlenecks, that allows people to get care when they need it at the level they need. And we will see that that will have a positive effect, not only on the direct services to those folks, but on homelessness, on public safety. That has to be where we go first. So that's the soon one. The second one, which I'm not prepared to talk about in detail now, but laying out, it's going to be how we're going to get us to universal access to childcare. The state is rolling out universal TK and pre-K. Those are 3-hour programs. Those are not going to solve the childcare issue for many families. And I'm thinking about home-based, center-based, license exempt, how we get funding to make that fully accessible. So that's the later piece.
Wonderful. That makes clear those two, crystallizes those priorities that you have. Oh, I see Carla has, I'm going to violate my rule, not hand it over yet. Carla, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for spending this time with us, Supervisor. So I love hearing all of your priorities completely resonate. I do want to say San Jose Unified's TK program is full day. But also I want to say, I love your talk of radical transformation. I love the focus on mental health, but I can't help but emphasize that you have a workforce that has been doing so much, and CEMA really always has gone above and beyond. Yeah. And folks are tired, and sometimes, I mean, like seeing some of the comments, the thought of someone feeling like they can't fully speak up is just sort of like, that's so sad that that's happening anywhere in our county. I think we need a champion and a real bold commitment to employees. And I wonder if you have any personal suggestions or things that you do to sort of recenter so that work is not so consuming. How do you take care of yourself? How does your staff, how do you do things different with your own board team, or how do you feel we could be doing these things differently for the whole workforce? Any tips for us?
So 2 super different questions in that. In a broad workforce setting, I think we need to hear from employees. I think it doesn't make sense for us to predetermine what wellness, mental health care looks like. I mean, literally, does it look like just more money and we'll be happy and not stressed? Does it look like, I don't know. So I think getting recommendations, hopefully in an organized way from our labor partners, would be super helpful to know what it means to you, because what it means to me may be totally irrelevant or off base. For me personally, being outside and being in nature is something I desperately need and love, and gives me endorphins and dopamine lifts. And I'll tell you, the hardest part of the pandemic for me was during the fires, because we couldn't be inside together anywhere. And then with the smoke, we couldn't be outside. And I just felt like I was being crushed. That was horrible for me. In terms of my office and my team, they would certainly have to speak for themselves, but what I try to do certainly is cultivate an environment where people can acknowledge when they are having a hard time and need space. We do have our own telework policy, and the whole team works remotely on Wednesdays. It works better to have all of us out on the same time, because then we know anything scheduled on Wednesdays is always virtual. My policy aides also have the option to work from home on the Thursdays before board meetings, the day after the agenda drops, because they say that they find it easier to be alone and to concentrate and do what they need to do to help prep me for board meetings. And being kind to each other, cutting each other slack, bringing treats, just trying to make sure that the 11 of us have, you know, a trusting relationship and respect for each other as full human beings who come with whatever we're coming with that day.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Supervisor Ellenberg. I'm going to just hand it to Lawrence Michael to close us out, and if you have any final remarks as well. Lawrence Michael.
Thank you so much, Seb. Supervisor, do you have any other closing remarks before I close this out?
I don't. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I feel like we hit on lots of little points here to move forward on, as well as some big picture. So the door and the screen remain wide open. I enjoy learning from all of you and talking with you. And thanks for the time today.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Ellenberger. You know, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. You know, we are truly so grateful, humbled, and honored. We know that there are many demands for your time and attention, so we fully appreciate you taking this time to spend with us. Now, thanks to the PD committee members and to the CEMA Executive Board, and of course, our CEMA OE3 staff, and to Zeb for facilitating this. Most of all, thank you to all of you, our CEMA members, whether you're attending in person or watching this event on our YouTube channel, for continuing to strive to continue learning and developing and improving professionally. We know you are all busy, so we truly appreciate you spending your lunchtime with us. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Bye.